Hi, my name's Beth. I'm a highly specialist paediatric speech and language therapist, and in this video I want to talk to you about a question that I get asked a lot when I'm working with children who have speech sound difficulties, and it's this: what causes speech sound problems? I get asked this question by parents, by relatives, by teachers, TAs, education professionals, people who work in preschools. What's caused this child to have speech sound difficulties? Sometimes it's really obvious. It might be they have a cleft lip or palate, they might have an underlying health condition like Down syndrome or cerebral palsy. Sometimes we need to do a bit more investigation. So in our initial assessments, all speech therapists will carry out a case history where we find out more information about the child's development so that we can see if there are any patterns or any things that actually might be causing these speech sound difficulties. It might be because the child just has delayed development, so there might be some other areas in their development and they've been a little bit late, perhaps 3 months behind the textbook or 3 months behind what's expected for their age. It might be because they were prem, for example, they were a premature baby and they might have been born 10 to 12 weeks early, in which case we're actually looking at a time frame which is 3 months delayed, so we need to account into that when we're looking at children's development. Some children have got hearing loss. They might have glue ear, for example, or a build-up of wax in their ears, which causes difficulties with hearing particular types of sounds, so hearing a flowy f or a s sound, for example. Sometimes children have what we call foreign objects in the ears. There was one little one I worked with who had a pea in their ear and it had been there for quite a while. It was revolting. Moving on. There might be some poor language environment at home. There might not always be lots of opportunity for the child to hear some really clear speech sound or speech to them. There might not be a lot of face-to-face interaction, for example. There might not be many opportunities for bedtime stories where they're reading books with sounds like pop and wow and boo, where they can really see some particular words being modelled for them. Sometimes there might be older siblings who are a little bit too helpful and they're just doing lots of talking for this younger child. So they're actually not having many opportunities to practice their speech sounds, to develop their speech sounds, because they don't really need to if their older sister's just going to say stuff for them anyway. There might be a dummy user. Ooh, this is such a hot topic on this. I have another video on using dummies, and there's also a blog on my website at speechandlanguage.com on dummies. Dummies and thummies, hot topics. So if you try and say anything with your thumb in your mouth, you will find that lots of speech sounds aren't being able to be made. There's the t, d, n, l, s, sh, ch, j sounds. All of those sounds are made on that ridge just up there behind those top front teeth. And if you've got a thumb or a dummy there, then you can't achieve those sounds correctly. And then what children might end up doing is if they're talking with a dummy in their mouth, they're using different substitute sounds. So they might use a sound or a slashy noise instead, which is going to then turn into a habit where they're using incorrect sounds when they're talking. So that's something that we look for. One of the questions I always ask, does your child have a dummy in there for? And they still do, and that's naughty. Another thing that children might have is they might have a genetic or a medical condition, and this is what we need to ask parents in the initial assessment when we're taking a case history. Have they got anything else going on? For example, cleft lip and palate, or whether they have, like I said, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, or any other underlying condition that might be comorbid or co-occurring with a speech sound difficulty. There might be a family history of speech and language communication needs. There might be a parent or an uncle or a grandparent who has had some speech sound difficulties or just speech difficulties in the past, and they need to see a speech and language therapist. Sometimes we see whole sibling groups, and every couple of years I'll see the younger sibling of a child that I've seen before with similar difficulties or just with some speech and language issues. So there's always something that we look at when we're looking at whether there's a family history of communication and speech and language needs. There might actually be from a family who have more than one language, and you might find that in English language there are some speech sounds that don't occur in other languages. Just like in other languages, there are some speech sounds like the ch sound you might find in some in Spanish, for example, or in Arabic, and then you've got the sh and the ch sounds in English that aren't found in some other different languages. So actually the children don't know how to make those sounds. It's not a speech sound disorder, it's just a difficulty because they're not used to producing those sounds if they don't have English as their first language, which is fine because we can teach them, we can help them. There are always some other conditions and impairments that might cause children to have speech sound difficulties. but also sometimes there's no cause for their difficulty. They're just swapping their sounds over. There's been plenty of children I've worked with that haven't got any underlying health difficulties. They've got no issues with their hearing. There's been no family history of speech and language communication needs. They've just got some tricky speech sounds. But the best thing about speech sounds is that we can help to make those better. We can often resolve any speech sound difficulties. And often actually it's teamwork between the speech therapist and the education professionals. So the speech therapist will work out what sound the child needs to work on and at what stage on their steps to success they need to work on, and which means whether they need to work on individual sounds or putting those sounds in little words like the f sound in fee, fi, fo, or whether you need to work at single word level or sentence level. And so it's about teamwork, really. So if all of this is interesting to you, you can find out a bit more information on my website, www.thespeechandlanguageguardian.com. There's a freebie handout you can grab from the freebies page on ages and stages of speech sounds. So you can work out what speech sounds should be developed in your child according to their age. There's some ebooks that you can go and grab if you want, that have some activities that you can play either using speech sound pictures or not. And then there's also a massive course that you can do, which helps you to work out, help the children that you're working with, rather, to follow on their steps to success and their progress with their tricky speech sounds so that they don't have these speech sound difficulties anymore. So that's the Speech Sound Steps to Success, which is an online course. It's all pre-recorded, so you can just access it whenever you like and keep logging in and logging out for as many times as you want. That's also on my website, thespeechandlanguageguardian.com, in the online courses page. You're always welcome to send me any questions or queries that you have as well. My contact details are on my website, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.